Vienna, but
It was a month.
huh?
It was
about a month.
It sailed back on June 6th. And it first sailed. You weren't outside a month because it first sailed on May 13th.
Yeah.
So the whole thing was
about a
3
month.
weeks. But yeah.
But there were, Highest was involved, there were people who were, the joint distribution, there were people who were negotiating, and there are people, even some of the people now who survived and who go to reunions and that kind of thing, they were more politically involved in Jewish organizational life, I think, and in negotiating. My parents were young; they weren't involved in that. I think that my parents, I don't know about the luck of the draw, but there were, my father had contacted after he got out of Dachau. He had written to, Blumenstock is not that common a name. He had written to every Blumenstock here, asking if they were relatives, and the only answer he got was from a minister, a Christian cleric. It wasn't a relative, but he responded. But they were not involved in organizational life, communal life, all of that. They weren't political people. They were pretty, successful business people, middle-class business people, a little bit upper middle class, but in any case, what I write is that I didn't write this. What I've thought is they had my mother's cousins, first cousins, my grandmother's 2 brothers had been here from the earlier period, closer to when your family came, and they had grown children. And one of them was better off than the others, and he had apparently written and said that we would not be a burden. That's what you had to demonstrate, that we wouldn't be a burden. They would, he had done that. And so I don't know if that played a part in the decision or not. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Now, I understand that even when the ship left Hamburg, everybody on the ship had a visa to get off in Havana.
Yeah.
But it wasn't honored by the government.
Right. Yeah, right.
Okay. Then
so that was a deal, apparently, between Goebbels and whoever in
But then there was money came from the United States, from the Federation. Somebody went to Cuba with a bundle of money to pay off the government.
Yeah.
And they took the money and they still did nothing. Is that...
Right.
That would make sense.
Yeah. It's the world as we know it, right?
That would make
And
sense.
it wasn't, I was always under the impression it was Batista, the dictator, but he was not involved in that. It was somebody else.
I don't know. And the people, the first book that I said, the popular book that was written, and then the movie was made based on that, and now there's been much more scholarly work, and the museum is, they've got much more rigorous information, rigorously gained information. But in that first book, they talked about there had been a deal between Goebbels and the foreign minister, the foreign minister or whatever, that Goebbels would use this as a demonstration to show that they're letting these people go. They don't want them.
Nobody wants them.
But now Cuba won't let them in. Nobody wants them. Right. So both sides, that was the message that was underlying the arrangement, according to that book. I don't know if there's...
I think that's certainly how it works.
But all this is coming to me later in life, when I was 12 years old.
You didn't know.
I didn't. It was.
I honestly, I didn't know that much either. My parents did not sit around, and even my father's entire family was wiped out in Poland. And I remember the day that I asked him about that, but he did not. It wasn't at length. But everybody in the family had a different story of either escape or not escape. My mother's 3 brothers all escaped in different ways, and one of them just turned 95 yesterday. One of them's the only one alive from that family. her father had come here before, but her mother wouldn't leave. Wouldn't leave my mother and me because my father was in Dachau. She stayed. She almost didn't get out, but there was a dramatic story there. She got out after we did. And I can't, when I think about what that was like and who these people were, it's quite, I can't even begin to get it. But they didn't talk about that much. That's just, so I don't really have great information. It's just pieced together. And my father's family, one brother who had been in Europe, my father came from Poland when he was a young, 18 or a teenager, to make his way in Austria. And he came to join his brother, who I think was, I don't know, he was in Germany at one point. His big sophisticated brother who had also left this village in Poland. And we have lots of photographs of him. He was a bachelor, he was doing very well, who knows what he was doing. But anyhow, my father came, and then my father made his own way and developed his own businesses and so forth. But his brother was there, and when we got to England, his brother also made it to England. And then, but he spoke German, he was sort of well dressed, he was one of those Jews who was proud to be not from the shtetl, right? Which he had come from. Yeah. This is what I've heard. I mean, I don't, never met him. But he was it was very important. I was very important to him. He had this little niece, he came to England. And then he was rounded up, and they were sending, the British were sending him along with others, to Australia or New Zealand. I think it was Australia. And that ship was torpedoed. And so he was lost at sea. And that was my father's closest brother, and who managed to get out. And the only person in my father's family who survived. He had sisters who were married, he had brothers, he had that one brother. But one sister had a son who years later found my father, who had been one of these stories of crawling out of piles of dead people across Europe and ending up in a displaced persons camp and meeting somebody there, and he made his way here and he found my father. And he died a couple of years ago, but he lived in California.
When did you come to America?
We came when I was 9, but that was a quota issue. My mother could have come sooner. She wasn't going to leave him. Poland had made him stateless. So he was one of those people who was stateless, but the Americans saw him as, I think, Polish ethnicity, identity. So he was, he actually during the war was in the British military. They recruited him. Yeah. They recruited him, and they wanted to send him back because he spoke Polish to do, I'm sure not very high level, but some kind of spying, and he refused. Poland had made him stateless. He refused to go back. So he told me, I was a kid, I didn't ask enough questions, one of those things you regret when it's too late, right? But all I knew was that he peeled a lot of potatoes.
For the military.
Maybe he picked some too.
I did that too.
You
in
did?
the American Army.
Yeah.
Ended up in Korea.
Oh, okay.
Oh, really? Yeah. So he
Somebody
did
has to peel the potatoes.
I do remember air raid. I was being in an air raid shelter as a child. I do remember the sirens going off. I do remember him coming home on leave. And one of the memories, why you have certain memories and others, I don't know. I heard the train. This was a small, very small town in England. I heard the train, the sounds of whatever it was, the horn, and in my mind, I was lying in bed, my mother put me to bed, in my mind, I pictured him stepping off the train, and I did every step between the train station and the house, and the minute that he got to the little gate at the front of the house, it opened and he came in. I've always remembered that. I have no idea how old I was. I couldn't have been more than 4 or something. I don't know, but that was when he was in the military, and he came home for a weekend, or I don't know quite where he was stationed.
So, and what brought you to the United States eventually?
When?
Well, what brought you? When and what?
My father's entire family was in St. Louis. sisters and brothers, my
When
grandmother.
did they come there?
Huh?
When did they gone there?
They probably came to St. Louis, I would say, early 1904, 19, you know. And after the war, I decided I want to visit them. And after spending a month in St. Louis with the family, I really enjoyed being with cousins.
Yeah, sure.
And then I came back after I had my affidavit and all that. So it was 1951 officially. I came to the United States.
Okay, yeah.
1950, 51, they drafted me.
Oh, so then you left.
They couldn't wait.
Right. And you stayed in St. Louis then the whole time.
So you still have a big family there?
Yeah.
Were you from St. Louis?
Yes.
You met in St. Louis?
Met in
Meet
St.
me in St.
Louis.
Louis?
Yeah, meet me in St. Louis, yes.
The American Songbook, mostly written by Jews.
Exactly.
Right.
Merry Christmas and everything
Right.
else.
So we've been married 60.
He'll be 63.
Wow.
Wow.
He's 10 years older. And we met between my junior and senior year in high school.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow.
And I got married right out of high school.
Out of high school.
Out of high school.
And so you have a son.
We have a 60-year-old son, Bob. This is Steve, who is 58. And we have a daughter who is 54.
And where did they live?
Steve, San Francisco, and the other two live about a mile from us on the same block.
How lucky. That's lovely.
And 5 grandchildren.
Five.
Five.
That's great.
Yeah.
What do you do in San Francisco, Steve?
Public school teacher.
What do you teach?
3rd grade.
Third grade. And have you always been there in California? Did you go there early on?
Yeah.
I left as soon as when I was 20. As soon as I could make a decision about where I wanted to live.
You didn't want to be in
San Francisco's a good place to live. It's expensive these days.
Yes, it is.
Especially for teachers, I think.
Yes, it
a
is.
lot
Yeah.
of homeless people.
Yeah, I was just there. It's very
Yeah, they were just, yeah.
great if you're very well resourced.
It's-
But
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
So we might not be there too much longer because we're not.
Yeah, that's, I've heard that actually. In fact, there was a street musician that was giving us all lectures about how we were ruining, those of us, presumably, the collective we was the tech sector, which I'm not, but I was standing listening to him. We're ruining his city and making it completely unaffordable for artists and musicians and teachers and others. Actually, I've heard people in the tech sector are really worried about that because they're outpricing their firemen and their teachers, and
They
right, they can't support public infrastructure.
Right, the people who run the city definitely cannot afford to live.
Right.
Where do you live?
I live in Williamstown, Massachusetts. So I've been in Providence, Rhode Island for the last 20 years. I just moved to Williamstown about almost a year ago in July. So we live there now, which is where Williams College is located.
Yeah.
So,
Do you have any children?
I have 2 kids. I have a son who's a freshman at Brown University, left him behind, and my daughter who is in high school, so she's with us. She's actually at her grandma's house right now, waking up late in the
With the
morning.
dog.
Yeah, with the dog and the stepfather, really grading stepfather. But she's so she's 15. So yeah, growing. As they do. So, and you have the one daughter who's here, and you have other children?
No.
That's it, yeah.
It's just a hobby for us. We have 2, then you really start parenting.
Yeah, that's true. And she's a professional singer.
Yes.